Hello and welcome back to another video of Circuit Digest. In this webinar series, we'll be discussing about a company called Peer Robotics, which is a collaborative mobile robotics company that builds robots that could work alongside humans to enhance their productivity and efficiency. To know more about the company, we have Mr. Rishabh, who is the CEO of Peer Robotics. So let's hear from him. Hello, Rishabh. How are you doing today?
Ashwin, I'm good. Thanks a lot for having me here.
So how is Corona over there? Like, how are you handling all the situation?
Yeah, I mean, we are in Gurgaon, so we're definitely near the peak, essentially in the country. But things are going better now, I would say, because our team members have started getting vaccinations, and yeah, work from home is still going on. But that being said, thankfully everything is going better for us. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So let's get into the questions. Rishabh, can you tell us about Peer Robotics and the type of robotic solutions that the company offers?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so at Peer Robotics, we truly believe that future lies in collaboration between humans and robots and not fixed automation. And with that ideology in mind, we build mobile robots that can learn from humans in real time. So, allowing people on the factory floor, like material handlers, operators, package movers, to simply deploy these robots by moving them like a shopping cart. And in this process, they can program it and the robot can do that task again and again. So think of it like a Roomba, but for the material handling solutions in manufacturing and warehousing lines.
Okay, fine. So how did this journey start? Like what inspired you to start Peer Robotics and how has the journey been so far?
Yeah, so just a little bit background. I also belong from a manufacturing background. Like my dad had a small manufacturing line. And while growing up, I had a chance to see how things changed drastically over the years, especially for small and medium scale enterprises. And I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, master's in systems throughout the process, working towards collaborative robotics. And my co-founders, Tanya, Alok, they are also experienced in the field of robotics. And over the period of years, we saw many industries trying to automate or looking to get the value out of automation, but somehow still stuck at just POC levels or initial stages because of one of the factors that we identified is that the complication around automation. So the users still see robot as like a separate entity that comes in their facility and now they have to worry about that. It's not a part of their ecosystem or their processes, right? And that's how we started working on peer robotics from the idea that what if we can make these robots as simple as, let's say, laptops, right? So no one has to worry about that, okay, who's going to set my laptop? What happens if I'm downloading these new codes or writing those Excels or whatever, right? So with that idea, we started building the robots. The core idea was always that, okay, how humans on the factory floor, on the warehouses can work with these robots. No need for software engineers or experience training to deploy and work with the platforms.
Right. So what kind of robots is Peer Robotics actually building and what type of industries are you supporting? Can you give any case studies like where your robots have been used?
Sure, yeah. So our focus is towards material movement currently, or in general, mobility in warehouses and discrete manufacturing to be exact. So consider automobile manufacturing units, OEMs, aerospace manufacturing, then EMS, contract manufacturing for electrical or even mechanical systems. And the operations or the tasks we are doing are very much similar to the lean manufacturing ideology. So water spider, Kanban replenishment, or even one piece flow or continuous flow that the operation on manufacturing lines are trying to do. So in all these areas, Peer Robotics is building solutions to support their flow of good and ensuring that the people on the factory floor can focus on a, I would say, productive task, which is the assembly or the machining of that particular tool rather than unwanted movement of parts from one place to another.
So you just told that your robots are easy to configure and the person inside the industry does not have to worry about, having an engineer to take care of it and configure it every single time. So how do you make it happen? Like what makes the robots from Peer Robotics easy to configure and use?
Yeah, so that's our secret sauce from the perspective that our robots can understand human feedback. Now, what that means is, let's say you or I, there's this platform there and it acts just like a shopping cart to begin with. So you can apply a force on the robot and the robot recognizes that force feedback and is able to learn from it and actuate it. So let's say if someone has to deploy the robot, all they have to do is simply take the robot physically by just grabbing it and moving it around on the factory floor. And in this process, robot learns all the end locations or even the path that the operator want the robot to follow. And yep, next time onwards, it can do it autonomously. So literally within minutes, we can teach the platform and deploy it.
Okay, right. So another key focus of peer robotics is making robots work alongside with humans in an industrial environment. So how do you ensure safety and productivity in such an ecosystem?
Yeah. So this is one of the core ideologies because we believe like not just working next to humans, but literally working with them, like existing as a peer to the already working man force or like labor force there in the factory lines right now. So how we are doing it is, first of all, we definitely focus on our robots are built up from the perspective just like a driverless car. So we have lidars, cameras around the systems that allow the platform to recognize how things are changing, how people are moving around the platform, and ensuring that okay, we are taking the right decision around them. But along with that, again, our secret sauce helps us to understand humans. So if let's say we are in the way or a human is in the way of the robot, they can apply the force or simply grab the robot and the robot actuates its drive. So, at the moment of interaction, the robot simply acts like a peer. So they can move the robot from one place to another or just take it out from the location from just a second. And once they are done, the robot will start doing its task again.
Okay, fine. So, Rishabh, Pure Robotics is, I think, one among the few robotics company here in India. So, what kind of technical challenges or any challenges that you would face when you're starting a robotics company? What are the challenges that you faced when you started the journey?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely ecosystem matters a lot. And in India, given that there are still very few robotics companies working or operating, there is a technical shortage as well. So it's hard for sometimes initially it's hard for us to build up a strong team, whether it's not just about the core leadership, but at the same time ensuring that everyone in the team is skilled towards the task of developing the platform, deploying the platform. But along with that, it's also about, I would say, the education that we have to provide to either our users or either our partners that, hey, this is the platform that is going to change the way operations were done so far. So we are in this phase of transition from predictable to dynamic operations. And for operators or for the factory floors or for the warehousing to understand that this transition will require automation that is as adaptable as humans is very key task for us. And that's where we focus, and that's the challenges we face right now, more from the perspective of adoption and building a strong team which has skill set or experience in this area for quite some time. Yeah.
How would you comment on the availability of components and resources when you're building a robot here in India?
Yeah, so that part is still, I would say, a little bit better in that sense because we do have a global supply chain. So as I mentioned, that myself, my co-founder, we are all from IT Delhi, and as part of that process, we were able to build robots when we were in IT Delhi, and that experience itself helped us to connect to that wider global ecosystem, in understanding where the parts are, how we can procure them, who can do the manufacturing, whether it's in India, whether it's even in Germany or Japan. But it allows us to create an ecosystem, or I would say a supply chain which is global. But that being said, we can acquire most of the components from the local Indian market itself.
How do you see the market for robotic solutions here in India? Like, what type of industries do you think are adapting this kind of solution much faster?
Yeah, so definitely there's a demand and there's a need because there is a potential of driving the throughput. And for that throughput, everyone is trying to strive for. And early adopters are always automobile manufacturers that we have seen. So we are also working with some of the largest automobile manufacturers in India. But along with that, some of the warehousing industries have great potential on adopting these platforms. And yeah, so I would say these two factors or these two areas would be one of the biggest one who are adopting the robotic systems right now.
So, what is Peer Robotics currently working on, Rishabh? Like, what are your future plans for the company?
Yeah. So far we have deployments going on in India right now. We are building these platforms. from a perspective that we are not just serving large enterprises, but also small and medium scale enterprises. And with that ideology in mind, our focus is to build these out of box solution, which we can ship to our end users and they can deploy it without any assistance, like within minutes. And even our market that we are focusing on is global, not just Indian market. So we have started working along with some of the American companies right now, transitioning slowly on the American SME market. And then Germany, Japan are the potential markets where we'll also be expanding along with India.
Okay. So Rishabh, my last question for you would be about, like new age engineers are kind of fascinated to work on robots. As you told, many college students and young engineers are starting with their careers with robotics. So they're very interested to start their career with robotics. So what would be your word of advice to them as someone who's very experienced in this field?
So I mean, one thing that I learned from our professors during, like, whether I was in IT Delhi or like other universities, Maryland or somewhere, but one thing that I realized, it's also key that identifying what you like doing. So in robotics is also a very wide area. Like we have mechanical engineers, we have electrical engineers, software engineers, but identifying the area where you want to gain your expertise in and focusing on it for years and years, because nothing good is going to come from, let's say, like 1 month or 2 month kind of training. The focus should be on how we are honing those skill set, how we are focusing on something that we really like doing. So one piece of advice would be, again, transferring from my professor again, that rather than sawtooth progress of working on something and then going down and starting something new, we should focus on developing system and giving it time throughout. So making sure that what we are doing is something we love. And once we have identified that, giving all of our time and effort towards making it one of the best skills. So yeah.
So are you looking for any fresh talents at Peer Robotics, like currently?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key areas are we are constantly growing. Even right now, our software team, our firmware team is looking for, like, I would say, highly skilled people to come and work along with us. Over the past 4 or 5 months, we have hired like 4 more engineers along with us. So yeah.
What would you see when you hire someone for, for your work?
As I said, like dedication. So not just, what they are working on right now, but what they've built in past and how their progression was over the years. So that is one of the key areas that we focus on, that how dedicated they are towards that particular skill set and which level they have worked on over this period.
Okay, great. So, Rishabh, that's it. I'm done with all my questions here. Is there anything that you would like to add up to this conversation?
No, I mean, that was really helpful. So yeah, really appreciate. One thing that I would say, about peer robotics or about the industry or about the market in general is that robotics is going from the perspective of not just, I would say, like the persona of replacing humans, which is not true at all. The key part that robotics is developing right now is how we can empower humans using these accessible automation. So that's an area where a lot of other companies are also trying to focus on, and even our peer robotics focus is towards making sure that we are driving throughput and overall productivity of the production lines, of the warehouses, by not replacing humans at all, but by empowering them, by providing these systems that are just like, enablers rather than hindering any form of the flow there.
Okay, fine. So, thank you so much, Rishabh. Thank you so much for joining us and discussing all these details with us. So,